Morning, entrepreneurs. Are you an entrepreneur? I am an entrepreneur. July the 27th. A good fisherman goes out of his way to bait his hook with what the fish prefer, usually worms or shrimp. A lot of fish like shrimp, which might not be a bad tip for those who wish to succeed in human relationships. Just as in a conversation, it's a good idea to listen more than you talk, it's also wise in relationships to think about the well-being of others more than you think about your own wishes and desires. When you constantly strive to treat others in the same way you would like them to treat you, you become a person whom others like to be around, one who commands their respect, confidence, and loyalty. When you learn to manage emotions and your ego, and when you learn to always consider the needs and desires of others, it is inevitable that you will bait your hook with kindness and consideration and catch more friends than you can count. So he's talked about football, he's talked about fishing. He uses a lot of analogies to get his point across, but once again, pretty similar concepts, which is, golden rule, do unto others as you would have others do unto you. Listen more than talk, help people. I mean, probably 7 or 8 of the little paragraphs have been about just helping people and giving of yourself, and you'll get that back in spades. And people who are struggling and just barely paying their bills, a lot of times one of the reasons is because they're just focused on themselves. And once again, going back to 2014, I totally get when you don't know when your next meal is coming from and you're afraid of losing your apartment or your condo or your townhouse or your house, if you have one, because you can't pay the rent or you can't pay the mortgage. I get how that's a real problem, and that's first and foremost on your mind. So I did it once again in 2 steps. Number 1 was survive. So I got back into real estate and worked for another guy for about 6 months, and just got to the level where I was no longer behind in my bills, and I wasn't having to sell things in order to meet my monthly nut, right? My overhead, the amount. Everybody should know their nut. Everybody should know what you should have a balanced budget and say, okay, my mortgage is this much, my cell phone is this much, internet is this much, TV is this much. And then if it's too high, if you don't make enough income to cover that nut, you have to either A, make more income, which is what I did in 2015, or B, a little bit easier, even though it feels painful, give something up. Do you really need to pay $200 a month to the cable company? There's so much free streaming shit now. I don't know why anybody's on cable or satellite, because you can get everything that you watch. Maybe later, maybe a day later, it's on free streaming, right? All you need is a Android box or a Fire Stick or one of those apparatuses. So that's a good example of where you can save money. Nobody should be paying $200 a month or more for cable right now. That's a quick $200 you just saved, and just look at it down that way. Beer. A lot of people they get their paycheck and they go to the bar and drink with their friends, and I get how that's socially, you interact with other people, it's important, but the beers cost what, $5 a beer or something. I honestly don't know, because I don't go to bars and drink. But if I did, I'd probably buy a 6-pack at Walmart and drink 1 or 2 of the 6-pack, and then go to the bar and have 1 beer with my friends and nurse it, right? Cheaper. Just say, cut back wherever you can, save money if you're not surviving right now. Make some tough choices and cut back on the shit you really don't need, even though you think you do. And at the same time, look at finding a real estate deal. Even if you don't know what you're doing, if you find a deal, a experienced person will tell you, and they'll buy it from you. And what I mean by that is, you need some training. You need to really know that ARV formula, really basic. ARV is the after repair value, what a house is worth fixed up. And you get that by comps that are already fixed up in the area, comparable houses that are sold within 6 months. And then based on that number, say it's 200 grand, you multiply that by 0.7 and come up with 140 grand, right? it's at 0.7 of 200 is 140,000. Now your average full-on rehab might cost $45,000 to $60,000. So if you just use 40 grand as a number, because maybe this one doesn't need a roof or doesn't need AC, you know, it's not that bad. It just needs your regular carpet, paint, you know, new appliances, new kitchen, new bath, maybe new windows, maybe not. So just use 40 grand for easy math. That leaves you with 100,000. 200,000 fixed up times 0.7 is 140,000, minus 40 grand in repairs is 100,000. So that number, that's called MAO, maximum allowable offer. That's the most that a flipper can pay for that house and make a profit. Now, if you're going to wholesale and you want to make extra money, you need to know that number, plain and simple. You need to know that, how to do that math. And you can look on Zillow, you can ask a realtor for help and say, hey, you know, when I flip and I sell houses, I'll use you as my realtor. And in response, can you send me what the ARV is on this house? And they'll help you. Realtor, there's 11,000 something realtors in Jacksonville. So they're out there and they're eager, especially the newer ones, to help. Just make sure they give you a good number. And that's it. Now the wholesaler, the flipper, that you're selling this house to, this deal to, is going to do their own due diligence. If they're professionals, if they know what they're doing, they're not going to take your word for it. They'll determine their own ARV and they'll determine their own repairs. But you've at least got to be in the neighborhood. When I was flipping, I got a lot of wannabe wholesalers who didn't bother to get the education. And they would say, you know, for a ghetto house, you know, in the 08, 09 area codes of Jacksonville, the war zone, they would say, oh, ARV is 150,000. For a ghetto house, really? No, they're going for 35 grand. You know, I'm a realtor. Every day on the MLS, I saw nice houses, done houses selling for 35, 50 grand. And these guys were saying that the house is worth 150. No, it's not. That's 3 times what it's really worth. Now, if somebody told me it was worth 75 grand, well, I'd look at the deal because it's probably not worth 75, but it's close enough to 50 or 60 or whatever it was worth at that time, that I'd look and see if the numbers work. And then the other thing is that, you know, they would say 5 grand of repairs. 5 grand really doesn't buy you a whole bunch of repairs. I mean, if you do carpet in a normal sized house, it's going to be close to 5 grand, right? If you do an AC, it will be 5 grand. If you do the windows, about $300 per window, that's going to be 5 grand. Hell, painting is like $1.50 to $2 a foot, a square foot for painting. So, you know, 2,000 square foot house, that's 4 grand, you know, so there's no way doing a whole house is 5 grand unless it's already in really good condition, which the people who sell it to the wholesaler wouldn't be selling it for that cheap if it's in really good condition. Makes sense? It's a distressed property. That's why it's going cheap. It needs to be fixed up. So when you see a wholesaler putting a thing out saying, oh, it's 150,000 after repair value and it only needs 5 grand in repairs, and I'll sell it to you for, you know, 120, that's not a deal. Okay, it's not a deal. If you're new, you might think it's a deal, but it's not a deal. So get a little bit educated. I mean, guys, there's so much information on YouTube. There's no excuse for you not to know that formula and not to have a way to get comps either yourself or through a realtor. And, you know, working with the GC on the repairs. But like I said, just talking to flippers, networking them at the REIF group or the Yellowbird group in Jacksonville. Find your local real estate meetup group, and go and talk to flippers and say, what's your average cost of rehab right now? And you'll hear consistently 45 to 60 grand. The 60 grand comes from the cost of materials and labor going up when things got really busy. Back in the day, it was 45 grand to do a house. Shop around for bargains. You know, don't get a $300 toilet. Get the $99 dual flush toilet at Lowe's, the Aquasource. Right? It's a toilet, and it's brand new because it had the 2 buttons on it, where old toilets didn't have the 2 buttons, 1 for pee and 2 for poop. Right, so everybody knows it's new. That's the purpose. You want to show you but a new toilet, and it costs you $99 at Lowe. And sometimes they have sales where if you buy 4, it goes even cheaper. Whatever. But the point being, find out what the common cost of a rehab is. And now, once again, that's average. There are some guys who do $90,000 rehabs, more expensive houses, nicer materials, bigger houses. I mean, there's a lot of reasons it can go over 45 to 60 grand, but we're talking about your bread and butter house that you're going to retail out for 150 to 200 grand. Those are the ones that sell the fastest. Those are the ones that most flippers are looking for. 32211 in Arlington, 25, 32244 and 10 on the west side. There's plenty of houses in that 150 to $200,000 range, and that's what flippers like, because they can sell them quick. There's a lot of customers at 150 to 200 grand. So I hope that helps you. If you're just surviving right now and you want to make that next step, that's the easiest way, is to find a house that meets that guidelines. What happens is the flippers get very busy and they don't have time to drive for dollars. They don't have time to go searching for properties and calling, for sale by owners. You do. You've got time. You're barely paying your bills. So you're going to trade time for money, and that's a valuable, value added. Okay, it's a valuable resource to a flipper. Flippers need more houses. Flippers just want to buy a house, fix it, sell it. Buy a house, fix it, sell it. So nowhere in there do they have time to find the deals. That's where wholesalers come in. It's a partnership, like we've been talking about for a month now. Partnership, teamwork, right? You provide the deal, and oh, by the way, you make 5, 10, 20 grand on that deal. So now you're not just surviving, you're thriving, which is what your goal is, and you're providing a valuable service to the flipper. And you keep doing that, and you put some money in the bank, and next thing you know, you'll be a flipper, because you've learned from YouTube videos, from networking association, meetup groups where they train, more today than ever, I took the lesson, the thing from the positive action plan, and applied it to real life and what you're trying to do as an entrepreneur. Tomorrow's my birthday, so my gift to you. Mwah.